This is Ari and Eli. We're making a 20 to 30-minute podcast discussing Shakespeare and his impact on literature and drama and education, correctional facilities, and personal lives. We're doing this for our current college course, Shakespeare Behind Bars, specifically focusing on William Shakespeare, who was a famous English playwright and a poet who impacted literature and drama during and after his death, um, residing in London, England. And many of his plays resonates with individuals in many different yet personal aspects. They're applied in many areas such as education, in film, and even correctional facilities for incarcerated individuals.
Yeah, I like how you said that, it is, you're able to relate to it, and people of different backgrounds could be able to relate to his plays. Like, I feel like that's what makes him so famous for what he does, like one of the famous ones, because his plays are timeless. Like, they are able to connect to issues back then, issues now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just being able to transform a play, even if you change something different, you still know, all right, that's still Shakespeare, in some form, some shape or form.
And you kind of hear of him at a familiarly young age. Although this college course that we're currently taking definitely focused on him in much more of a in-depth aspects. I feel like when you're younger, you kind of are familiar with his work without knowing that it's specifically William Shakespeare's work. For instance, you have kids acting out Romeo and Juliet. I think everyone kind of know how the story goes. Romeo and Juliet falling in love and whatnot. I feel like when they hit a certain age, probably middle school, high school, when they start going over English playwrights, they're like, oh, that's William Shakespeare. I feel like his work is all around. You kind of see it, besides just his plays, you also see certain words of his in the dictionary. He definitely impacted literature in a big way.
That's a fact. I feel like it also comes with in understanding Shakespeare. I feel like you have to personally connect with it. But with personally connecting with it, you have to go through certain things for you to be able to personally connect with it. So a kid might see Romeo and Juliet while they're young. They never really been in a real relationship, so it's kind of hard to understand what's going on. But as time goes on, they start creating new experiences for themselves, and they start to get the gist or the summary of what Romeo and Juliet was based behind. Get what I'm saying? So it's just they they're able to grow as the story grows. As the story grows in time, they're able to grow within themselves, just in experiences and lives and their livelihood and stuff. So
and although we never discussed Romeo and Juliet in class, we can say that the playwrights that we did go over and get a better understanding of also target that same perspective. It could really be broken down into two specific points. It could be applied for students in the school system to furthermore in-depth their personal life outside of it, outside of just school, but whether or not they choose to have the play resonate with them on an educational level, they can also resonate with it on a personal level, family life, relationship life, background, little things of that nature, even racially, systematically, it gets in depth. And then, they could draw a personal connection from themselves to the play's characters. And then it could be broken down into being applied into correctional facilities for inmates who are in the process of reevaluating and growth from their mistakes, whether or not those mistakes were intentional or accidental against the law. I think that these are two big focus points that we can discuss with certain playwrights that we did go over in class, such as Hamlet and the Tempest, and referencing documentaries that we have watched and gone over and discussed. So, focusing on point A, how you can apply Shakespeare's work to your personal life and draw a connection from yourself to the play's characters. Which play that we've gone over in class, and we've gone over quite a few, do you think resonates with you the most on a personal level, and why?
Personally, I feel like Julius Caesar resonates with me the most. Mostly Brutus, cause like the gist of everything, he's kind of like the character who morally wants to do good, but he just makes bad choices sometimes. And I feel like me personally, like sometimes my intentions could be good, but it's just like I might go about it a certain type of way, or I might go about it the wrong way when it's most likely a different way you could have went about it. And I feel like for Brutus, it was like he grew jealousy, so instead of like talking about it or explaining it to the person, he just rather killed him. So I think all in all, that was just the extent, but I would never take that extent, of course. But there is times where like I feel like I could have did something different, but I know like I did what I did for the right choice, but it could have been handled a different way. What story do you feel like resonates with you the most?
I personally feel as if I have a deep connection with Hamlet. I feel like I knew that Hamlet was one of Shakespeare's works, but I've never actually taken the time to look into the story or even read a summary of what it's about. I'd kind of just like, high school theater drama, you'd kind of see like, oh, like Hamlet, or, have it be discussed, but I've never really ever dove into it. So with us discussing Hamlet in class, and also me being assigned a poem to memorize, I was like it was like a holy shoot moment for me, because I'm like, whoa, the story kind of goes like Hamlet, Hamlet's father kind of, like dies, and there's a ghost that's sent to Hamlet, like, yo, your uncle killed
You believe in
your
ghosts?
father. Yes, I do actually. I do believe in ghosts. So, Hamlet's kind of like, wait, like, my uncle killed my father, meaning like, Hamlet's brother, killed him. Mind you, after Hamlet's death, his wife decides to then marry the same brother that this ghost is, saying killed her late husband. Yeah. So Hamlet's kind of caught in the middle of it, and this ghost is basically saying, I need you to avenge your father. And he doesn't know if he's going crazy or, I don't relate on it on like that specific level, of course, but I think metaphorically, like, like with the trust and like, like trying to figure people out and read people,
like the meaning behind like what's really going on, you connect with it.
Exactly. This whole experience for Hamlet, he really had to be observant, on his toes, and see through people. And I think that there are so many, things that have happened throughout my life, especially growing up with family life. I think that this is more so like a family affair for Hamlet. I've had my fair share of family affairs, things that were out of my control, just like things are out of Hamlet's control, and I'm just caught in the middle of it all, trying to pick sides and read people, see through people, and try to figure out how this all affects me, and I think that the poem that I was assigned, what a rogue and pleasant slave I am, he's like, basically making that same point, like, you guys, if you guys knew what I went through, I wonder how you guys would feel, because he's watching the play himself, and other people are emotionally connecting to it and crying at like a certain scene,
and it's that, like, you're guilty.
And then Hamlet's like, he's looking at this play, and he's like, the same thing this woman is acting out, I'm experiencing in real life. So like, this isn't just a play for me, this is my life.
It's your life.
So like, how would you guys feel Would you guys feel for me the way you're feeling for her, and she's
Mhm.
acting and I'm not acting, I'm
Yeah.
not pretending,
Yeah.
So it's like that gets so deep, like it gets real serious, especially when you start self-reflecting.
That's
I could talk about this for hours because it's like, I don't know, it's such an interesting play, and I could draw so many connections in it.
That's
I
a
like
fact.
that
How you
question.
feel about Shakespeare and like the whole Shakespeare behind bars thing, like what he's done for the prison system? Do you think Shakespeare should still be incorporated in the prison system? How you feel about that?
Okay, so that's like a great question because that literally brings me to my point B, like my second point, which is how Shakespeare could be applied in correctional facilities for inmates who are in the process of reevaluating, reevaluating themselves for personal growth from their like mistakes, whether it be intentional, accidental, whatever the case may be. They were convicted and they're in jail. So, I personally think that the foundation that's laid out for like a Shakespearean play work, for people to kind of like learn about Shakespeare and apply it to their personal lives, like we've been discussing and whatnot. It's a great idea for reevaluation and self-growth. But I think that it's only applicable in that way if a person chooses for it to be applicable for them in that way. It's like going to school. You have people that hate going to school and can't take nothing from it. Despite going to school, getting their degree
Still
or passing classes, they still choose a different route. They decide to do whatever they want to do on the street. They decide to be around whoever they want to be around. They decide not to focus. It's a personal growth thing. That's that's kind of the whole point of reevaluating. So I guess it is definitely necessary, especially in the facility of like a correctional establishment. But like ultimately, whether or not a person is taking from it, it falls on them.
Like I definitely agree with that. Like I feel like rehabilitation is all on like if you want the rehab. That's like if somebody's an addict, like you can take them to a rehab center. They can try to get all the help they need. But once they get out and they on their feet and they in the real world, they make the decision on if they relapse or not.
Wanna know isn't the first like rule thing for like rehab and whatnot and like help is like acceptance? Isn't like that the first thing they always say? Like
you gotta take accountability.
You gotta accept it. You gotta accept that you have an addiction. You have to accept the circumstance that you're in. But I feel like even with acceptance, some people accept it, they just don't care. And
it all falls down on if you care. So
I
feel like what Shakespeare is doing, like it's gonna help if you want help, but it's not gonna help if you don't want it.
Well, I know it's crazy that you mentioned like what Shakespeare is doing, and I'm thinking in my head the whole time, Shakespeare's not doing nothing. I don't think he ever really kind of knew that his plays would take off like this and that it could be applied in so many different ways because like, if he were here now, like, who would have ever thought that his work would be used in, like, correctional facilities for reevaluating and, like, personal growth? Like, that's serious. Like, that's a different level of, like, fame.
That's true.
For sure. So, discussing, the whole correctional facility thing, we did watch a documentary in class, Shakespeare Behind Bars. Whereas we had inmates in this one specific correctional facility that were incarcerated for plenty of different reasons, and some of them were jaw-dropping, and they are participating in a program where they're acting out The Tempest by Shakespeare. First and foremost, what are your thoughts on that documentary? Did you like it? What did you take away from it? What are some points that stood out?
I liked it. Like I feel like it was good to see, but I also feel like if it didn't work, like if they did try it on multiple people, like, and some people weren't able to reevaluate their lives from it. I think they should have showed that, like, we just get more like success stories more than anything else. And I know for a fact there's more than just one guy. I remember in the play, well, the movie, we watched, the guy, he wanted to get a tattoo, so he wasn't able to participate in it no more, in the play thing no more. So I feel like it's probably more instances like that happen for people like that are incarcerated and they're brought Shakespeare, but I just don't feel like we see it enough. I also feel like if the inmates weren't getting compensated for what they were doing, I think that's wrong. I feel like that's kind of like taking advantage of them, kind of in a way. Like, even though they're in jail, like, yeah, they're getting the opportunity, but they're still like being placed on a film and like broadcasted to the world.
But like, do you think that they really, because like I said, some of the convictions are crazy. You know, for instance, I don't have a specific name for this one inmate. I kind of, it's clouded right now, but you know, after a while, you know, he's just chilling and he's coming off like
what he did wasn't serious.
Yeah, you know, he's coming off very laid back, and like you could see like there's like a sense of self-growth.
Yeah.
And then, you know, halfway through the film, I'm talking like maybe like 40 to an hour in, he's like, yeah, I'm convicted for raping X amount of girls, you know, minors.
That's crazy.
And then it's like, should he be compensated? Should he even be like allowed to be like filmed and like broadcasted in such a spotlight? You know, like, you know, and I think that brings us to the whole forgiveness and like, you know, are they being granted forgiveness by doing this?
That's a fact.
You know, and it's like, you know, if you can't forgive yourself, don't expect others to forgive you.
Yeah.
You know, period. Because like at that point, it's not forgiveness, it's validation.
Yeah.
You're expecting a sense of validation. All I know is if I've seen a man that was convicted of what he was convicted of doing, you know, to not to just one female, and even if it was one female, it's still dead wrong. You know, to multiple, you know, young girls.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I see him in a documentary, and he's being praised for, you know, working on Shakespeare's, you know, plays. I'd be so hot-headed. I'd be seeing red at that point.
Then it's a sense of like, where's the justice? Because it's like they are presented with this opportunity. I mean, it's not a get out of jail free card, but it can have some help into making somebody who done committed a crime free. So like, I really understand. Like, I definitely understand what you're saying for a fact. But
that's the thing. I feel like I understand what you mean with compensation.
Like, I feel like you could. I'm not saying you gotta give them a little money. You can give them a little extra honey buns on a commissary.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But like at the same time, no one's forcing them to do it.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean? I think that it's like, I feel like if there's something that's being granted to you, if you're doing something for the sake of what's being granted with it,
you shouldn't expect none in return.
Yeah, you know, like I feel like it's not even genuine for real. You know, you're not doing this for self-growth. You're doing this for an extra honey bun.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
like
true.
You know, I think that the whole point, you know, I'm not too sure whether or not they did get compensated in any way.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that if it did come down to them not being compensated, it's because they're choosing to, and they're genuinely choosing to reevaluate themselves and learn and grow. You know, and I think that's the point of this program because, you know, if not, damn near every inmate's about to be trying to be in this play for some extra food or some extra change, you know, like.
That's a fact.
But that's such an interesting point because I've never thought about that.
Them being compensated?
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm more leaning on towards your side now because I think them not being compensated is like a way of weeding out who's doing it because they want to and who's doing it because of something. It shows acceptance. Yeah. You know, it brings us back to the whole, like, the first step is accepting. Yeah. You know, some people just don't care. They accept and they don't care. That's a fact. You know, I feel like there's probably inmates that knew about this program and they're like, oh, well, I'm already here for this. I'm not about to participate in that. I don't care.
like they accepted what they did and why they're there. They just don't care.
I got a
And then you
question
got
for you.
other inmates who accepted,
Mm-hmm.
and, they somewhat care about what they've done and they want to grow and learn from.
Yeah.
And it led them to doing this.
That's
you
true.
know?
I got a question though.
What?
Do you feel like Shakespeare can be like incorporated in like, or not incorporated, but do you feel like Shakespeare can be presented in a different way for people to like be able to understand it like how you did?
Besides
just a play.
A play?
Yeah.
That is so interesting because that kind of brings me back to the whole hearing of Hamlet and never wanting to like look into it, because the thought of like playwright is so exhausting to me. I'm not much into theater. Plays are not for everyone. I feel like if I really wanted to, I could sit and watch a play. I feel like, in high school, middle school, you kind of like have little field trips to like a theater to watch like a playwright.
Yeah.
I'd much rather prefer that than sitting down and like reading through a playwright. I just can't do it. So I feel like, it would be kind of dope if you've seen it being more so presented on social media, right? Because I feel like we're living in such a modern day technological world. Everyone kind of is on their phone scrolling on things. TikTok is so big too. I feel like if someone were to kind of like present Shakespeare on TikTok in like a playful way, like, wait, this is what Hamlet's about, and then it'll kind of bring them into wanting to kind of somewhat read into his playwright and his actual original work. So that is a dope concept. How do you think that Shakespeare can be like, applied in like a modern way for like people to want to be getting into him?
I feel like what you said, like you kind of hit it on the nail, like just like more like social media presence in a way, especially for the younger generation. Like we're coming more into a place where like kids have tablets instead of books in their hands when they first come out.
That is so true and so crazy.
Yeah, like they're able to open phones already, 2 years old, can't read a sentence.
Right,
so like
but
just
to read a text.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
just
crazy.
Coming familiar with like just seeing like Shakespeare or like hits of Shakespeare around.
Yeah.
Like I think that'll like help people help people want to incorporate Shakespeare more into what they got going on in their lives and how they choose to take it. Like, and I feel like he has a message for everything. So in a way,
right, that's so true.
So like in a way, like I think people incorporating him in their lifestyles, like it wouldn't do no harm unless you really kind of messed up in the head.
Yeah. Okay, so, going back on what you mentioned about Shakespeare and his work having messages in them, I think that there is a lot of like themes that are being represented in a lot of his playwrights. And I feel like every time we discuss a new play in class, we kind of do discuss, what's being like taken away from it, what are like some main themes and messages, because he kind of incorporates them in a sneaky way. So with that being said, how do you think the message of the Tempest is like being incorporated in the correctional facility in that documentary that we watched, Shakespeare Behind Bars, and what do you think the message is?
Okay, well, the message, I feel like the message is mostly about forgiveness, but I feel like him going on a power trip at the beginning, like it kind of like blinded you from knowing that the whole message was kind of about forgiveness, but towards the end you see how he like releases them. That's how I feel like he kind of like forgave the people who wronged him by releasing them after he felt like he was able to move on from whatever they was going through.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And thinking about the whole power trip, that can be seen within Prospero. He's granted access to this power to kind of, cast away and isolate people on this island. And, we come across Caliban, who is an indigenous individual who is being somewhat convicted of taking advantage, or trying to at least take advantage of Prospero's daughter. And I believe her name was Miranda.
Yeah.
So, Caliban is being accused of trying to rape, trigger warning, by the way. I should have said that prior, but Miranda, and then he casts Caliban away on this island.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the incarcerated individuals that are acting out this play can definitely resonate with this, because you have power abuse within correctional facilities, systematically. Honestly, if you do your research on correctional facilities, I do believe that it was originally like a race thing, after slavery, African Americans being granted quote unquote freedom, which wasn't even complete freedom at the time. They started incarcerating a lot of Black African Americans in the whole, it's a lot deeper than what is being perceived as. But systematically, like, correctional facilities are just like so twisted, and you can see like the power abuse within correctional facilities the same way you can see it with Prospero in the Tempest, casting people away on this island and isolating them the same way how these incarcerated individuals are casted away and isolated from the real world. They're kind of looking at things from the outside, from the inside out instead of from the outside looking in. And forgiveness is also definitely shown, because you have Prospero, although he kind of has this whole God complex mentality, calling the shots and whatnot, because after all he was a former duke. He also decides to forgive instead of just following through with revenge. And I feel like the overall theme does end with forgiveness, the same way how these incarcerated individuals are also in the process of growing and forgiving themselves, and just like fingers crossed, hoping and praying that whoever they've wronged forgives them, the same way how Prospero, who's the protagonist in the Tempest, is also like forgiving those who have wronged him. So it's kind of like cool when you look at it in that perspective. For sure. So my question to you is forgiveness truly forgiveness if you're doing it for others, but instead of for yourself, whether or not you decide to forgive yourself, right? You have an incarcerated individual. Let's say you have two incarcerated individuals. One of them is in the process of forgiving themselves. They accepted what happened and they just can't forgive themselves for it, but they're expecting other people to forgive themselves. How do you think that works? And then you have another incarcerated individual who forgives themselves for the wrongs that they've done. They accepted it, they forgave themselves, and they're kind of expecting other people to forgive them too. Like, how do you think forgiveness kind of works in that area?
I feel like forgiveness only work like, so if I do something to you and like I really feel like deep down inside that it's wrong, I can only do but so much for you to know like I'm sorry. You feel me? But I feel like it's mostly up to you. Like, it's mostly up to the victims, whether if they're like the person who did the crime is forgave or not. Like, well, that and the judge, because like when you see like
that and the judge, that's
because
facts.
the judge could say
Calls
anything. That's what really call the shots. But in the fact of being sorry, or like being sorry for the act you committed, like, I can say sorry and I can show you that I'm sorry, but if you don't take it, then you don't take it. But I also like, I have I got a soft spot in my heart for just like people, period. Like, I don't want to see nobody hurt, like that. So if I was to do something to somebody and like I genuinely come to them and I tell them like I'm sorry and stuff, and they don't take it, or they don't like accept my apology right then and there, like I have to keep trying.
Yeah.
Like it's no, like I don't know, like I don't want nobody like just picturing me in like a negative light, like
I know your
especially
reputation holds weight. I totally agree.
Yeah, so like feel me, like what I would do, maybe Prospero wouldn't do, but I don't know. I don't think like just because somebody wronged me, I can't wrong them back.
I feel like, but damn, like that, what Caliban was, being accused of, that shit's serious. Oh,
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Like that's a fact. But like when it comes to certain like other stuff, like I feel like that's another thing about Shakespeare. Like it's written so far back in time. Like certain things that were accepted back then are not accepted now. So like what I'm thinking right now, like yeah, like a lot of shit. Excuse my language. A lot of stuff now is still a drag.
Yeah.
But like, feel me? Like just all in all, like what they were doing back then is just way different than what they were doing now. So like certain things they did back then, if you ask me that now, I know I wouldn't be able to say sorry.
See, like forgiveness is such like a hard topic for me to kind of like touch base on. So I personally feel like forgiveness is such a hard thing for me to touch base on because like it's never like a one word straightforward answer with me. Like I can't just be like, oh, I forgive you or I don't forgive you because I'm gonna drag it. Like truthfully, for me, I kind of perceive things based off of principle and morals.
So you're a get back type of person?
Not even. I think it's like I don't even feed into the whole like getting my get back or like like doing someone how as wrong as they've wronged me.
Yeah.
I don't feed into that. I just kind of take things for what they are. One thing about me is I will always take everything for face value because I look at things from the perspective of I only deal with people that are A, either my age or B, older than me. So I'm like, if I know like morals and principles, it's a flexible thing because people have their own moral code that they stand on.
Especially
people perceive things differently.
Yeah.
People grew up in a different way. People hold principles in a different level, than you may have. So I'm like, okay, cool. But I think at a certain age, you should know what's morally right and what's morally wrong.
Okay.
And it's hard for me to move past certain things because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, you knew what you were doing when you were doing it. You didn't care when you did it. You weren't sorry then, so why are you sorry now? And I think that can be touched on within so many aspects. Could look back at the documentary we went over in class with the Shakespeare Behind Bars. You have you have Red and you have Big G and a whole bunch of felons, and as each of them speak and take their turn speaking, they also discuss why they are in jail. So we have someone who's convicted of murdering their wife, and I believe that he's playing Prospero in the play, and you could draw the connection of like his daughter now also not having a father, the same way how Miranda in the play did not have a mother. He also took away Miranda's mother, the same way how Shakespeare just went over how Miranda was like around Prospero, grew up with Prospero, didn't know her mother. Well, now her Prospero is taken away. Well, when he killed his late wife, he wasn't sorry then. So why are you sorry now? And why are you searching and hoping for forgiveness? And I think that truly it is a self journey, but you can't expect it from others. Because other people will perceive it that way. Because that's how I perceive things.
I feel like in situations like that, self growth is not even only on just the person who's committing the crime, but it also is on the victim's family. Like, they have to be like tough enough, or not tough enough, but tough enough to basically say like, okay, I'm gonna put whatever they did aside and try to hear them out and try to listen to understand and hear them and get the sense of why.
Easy. you know, and then
Yeah.
it's like they're looking at you like a threat because you pose yourself as a threat,
Yeah.
you know, and then at the same time, you know, then we also have, I believe that this was Big G, who was convicted for shooting a cop. You
Yeah, I
know,
think
he
he
was,
was.
you know, involved with a group of people, and it led to a shootout, and he shot a cop and took a cop's life. And now you got to think, okay, maybe it was an impulsive decision, even if you knew what you were doing.
Yeah,
you know,
but-
and you were at that age where you knew it was morally wrong, and you were gonna get convicted for that.
Yeah, nobody
you know,
told you to pull the trigger.
exactly. So like I said, I take things for face value, and you know, like I said, the reason why I resonate with Hamlet, I guess I can personally say I also resonate with the Tempest as well now. Is because, you know, growing up, I had my fair share of learning or trying to learn how to forgive, because I didn't have my mother around. She made her own faulty decisions, and as I grew up, I started realizing how that had affected me. You know, and then it comes down to me looking at it from a perspective of, well, when you had me, you were around my age. And then when I look back at it, I'm like, well, you were grown enough to know what you were expected to do as a mother, because now that I'm that age where you had me, I'm looking back like, damn, if I had a child right now, knock on wood, I would know how to raise a child, and I would know, you know, what comes with having to be a mother during that time. But you chose a different route, and now I need to learn how to forgive you for the wrongs that you've done. You know, it's truly not a easy road. That's why I can't just forgive someone. You know, it's truly a process. So that's why when I look at it from that perspective, these inmates in the Shakespeare Behind Bars documentary, you know, I think that you can't just expect forgiveness. You know, it's truly a personal development.
It's a process.
And it's a personal development. If you cannot forgive yourself, do not expect other people to forgive you, because now you know the battle that comes with it, and it's only 10 times harder for the victims. And then it's like, and if you do forgive yourself and others do forgive you, the whole world's not going to forgive you the moment that they find out. And, you know, like, you aren't to judge anyone. I don't believe in judging people, but you can be wary of people, you know, because if I'm around someone that was convicted of doing something very serious, I won't look at you. I won't look at you in a certain light. I won't judge you, you know. I won't make you feel judged. But I will be wary, you know.
I feel like you have to, because it's like, what stop you from not doing it again?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that's like an internal process. You know, no one knows that truly besides them. You know, so I think that the whole program with Shakespeare is great, you know, and it's definitely needed for them, but that doesn't determine whether or not the outside world will shed forgiveness, you know, or like perceive them any different. It's interesting.
Yeah, on that note, I would like to thank Ari for having me.
And I want to thank you for having me.
Thank you. We did great. All right.
Bye.
Bye.